Dan.
You are now host, Rick.
What's his wife's name?
Rick, you may want to check the waiting room. It just dinged as soon as I handed you hosting.
And I just added somebody in for the from the waiting room. So.
Okay. I'm going to mute myself and it's.
Okay. So I will share here. And our presentation begins. Welcome to Rotary, everyone. Today is not June 24th. Apparently, I updated everything on this slide except for the cover screen, cover page. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Carbondale. Start off with our bell. Thank you to Jerry Malumbi for being our greeter today. We'll open up with the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Rotarian Shane Hermits, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Will everyone please stand with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right, our moment of reflection today. I'm leading us in our moment of reflection. Not Shane. Once again, another slide I didn't update this week. I did update the picture though, and this is a Walt Disney quote. Whatever you do, do it well. Do it so well that when people see you do it, they will want to come back and see you do it again. And they will want to bring others and show them how well you do what you do. I think it applies not just to Disneyland, but to Rotary and to whatever we do in our careers and whatever else we do in our lives. That we have an opportunity to share with our friends what we do. And if we do it well, people will want to come back again and again. Jump over to Rotary Song Time, and as it's the 4th of July this weekend, I figured we could go with God Bless America today.
Who's going to lead this, Rick?
So apparently my sound is not working for everybody, but I had queued up Irving Berlin's God Bless America. So apologize for that. I don't know why the sound was not working for that presentation, but I invite each of you to listen to that song this week. And even with all the turmoil that we have in our country, we've got the rights and the freedoms here in America to fight for what's right. So I encourage everybody to enjoy the extended weekend with the 4th of July on a Saturday. We get that most people get that extra day on Friday. So enjoy the time with your family. Do our introduction of guests. We've got Gail White introducing our guests this week.
Well, welcome everyone, and especially we're happy to have some guests with us today, Deepa and Our, and of course our guest speaker, Dan Mahony. And I'm not sure if there's anyone else visiting, anyone I missed. If not, please give a virtual welcome to each of our guests.
All right, it looks like we've got Jennifer Olson visiting with us today, additionally, and I saw someone else that I didn't recognize, and I'm not seeing it through. But Pam, did you have any guests from your group that joined us today? All right, she's muted, so sorry, Pam.
I haven't seen anyone yet. So
Okay.
is Olga here? Did Olga show up?
I do not see an Olga in the group.
Oh, okay.
Who is in the waiting room, Rick?
I do not have anyone in the waiting room right now. Now I do have someone in the waiting room. I will admit that person in. All right, we'll continue on through. Club announcements. We've got our Cards for Kids project still underway. I don't see Cindy on the call today. But last week she announced if you're interested in assisting with that project, we've got an organization that we're working with that will deliver cards to children that are in hospitals around the region. So if you could reach out to Cindy Buys, her email is right here. It's cindygbuys@yahoo.com by mid-August, and she's coordinating getting those cards out to hospitalized kids. Returning to normal operation. We have the potential now that we are in phase 4 to meet in person at the school district office again. We'll have to be grouped of 50 or less. So there's a survey out that I ask each of you to fill out so we can figure out where we're heading here and what lunches might look like and what our meetings might look like. So please take a look at that. And then once we have the green light to do so, we are anticipating meeting in person and potentially having Zoom meetings as well. Foundation Challenge, our $100 match as part of our 100 Little Things. We've got Gayla did it for June. Ginger is covering July. Brooke August, Brad Austin in September, Sharon Harris Johnson in October, Linda Meredith November, Gail White December, and Harvette Gray in January of 2021. We'd love for this program to continue on through May of next year and just keep it moving on. So if you're interested or you're able to jump on that, please let me know and we'll add you to the list. Thank you to each of these Rotarians for contributing to this cause. Service projects in progress. Our Mass for Haiti. Second wave of supplies is being considered by the International Services Committee. At this time, though, we're going to hang on and do T-shirts. So if everybody's got, oh my! So I just had 3 people in the chat tell me that they want February. So I'll reach out to each of those individuals, and maybe we've got February, March, and April all covered here. So as we move on through the meeting, I'll reach out to those individuals. Thank you for those 3 for doing the match. Sorry, something else going on in the chat window. It's always fun to manage the chat and the screens and manage everything else we have going on. Ella, do you have anything to comment on for the T-shirts or anything else going on with the Haiti Mass Project?
Just like to comment that I think we're in the hurry up and wait stage still. We don't have any word about the flight that went to Pyongyang with the mask yet. So okay. I'll let you know. We'll let you know as soon as we know anything. But also we've got to get a graphic also. That other project that's so nice and colorful and we just have words. Words are great, but we need a graphic.
For the Promise for Haiti?
Pam. No, okay. for our project, our international
okay.
services project.
Okay. All right, we'll keep going here. Our SIH employee food drive, Cindy Buys and Jill Gobert have been working on that. Any updates on that one for us, Jill?
Cindy has been awesome. She, I think she's on vacation this week, but she typically meets with me once a week to deliver food that's been donated that she's purchasing, and the hospitals really appreciate it. So everything's going well.
Great, thank you. Let's keep up the good work with that one. Carbondale Warming Center Lunch Sponsorship Project. We are still providing lunch. So long as right now we are not meeting in person, our traditional lunch costs have been going to the Carbondale Warming Center. That's been sponsored by folks who have continued to pay their lunch fees and continue to make donations. Today they are serving mustard glazed pork loin, oven brown potatoes, sweet carrots, dinner rolls, and coleslaw. So let's keep up the good work with the Warming Center Lunch Project. In addition to the lunch project, we've got some materials projects with the Carbondale Warming Center, material assistance projects. We're now in week 5 of this project. Ed Reeder and Shane Hermits have been working and coordinating some metal shelving. I know Gail White has done a great deal with shelving, and he was installing some shelving last week. And a friend of mine is in the process of moving. He's a retired teacher and has over 20 plastic shelves. I talked to Carmelita and she will gladly take them. Once we have those cleaned off and ready to go, I'm going to be reaching out to a few of you with pickup trucks to try and get those coordinated. So we're getting 20 additional shelves that are being donated at no cost to us. So with water dispensers, there's been a concern that they had about dispensing water safely, and they've been using coffee pots as water purifiers. So big shout out to Sierra Allen for coordinating with the SIU Athletics and Illini Care to get a Brio countertop water dispenser that was delivered and installed this week. So big thank you to Sierra. Thank you to Carl and Linda Flowers for the microwave ovens. They're also in need of paper towels, cups, non-perishable food, towels, cleaning and sanitizing supplies, and funding. So they had some funding to get them through July, and they just received another grant to help them out with funding moving forward. But anything we can continue to do to help Carmelita and the team over at the Carbondale Warming Center. It's a great project that we've been doing, and a big shout out, big thank you to everybody who's been, the entire team that's been pitching in to make this a success.
Rick?
Yes, Gail.
Just also to note appreciation to Ed Reeder. He has continued to purchase shelving and donate it to the Warming Center as recently as last week. And if any of you are in a position that you would like to pay cash,
Like glass of wine, I'm just having a glass of Chenin Blanc. How about a glass of wine? That would be fantastic. Okay. Shall we say?
I think probably one of their biggest challenges going forward is funding availability. Carmelita said, I think they have been successful arranging for some funds to keep them afloat for the next couple of months. So that's a challenge that's always in front of them. So if you don't have material things to donate, cash donations are certainly always welcome. They do appreciate everything that the club has done so far.
It's great. Thank you, Gail. Continuing on through here, Women for Change Surfing into Summer. Faith Miller brought this project to our attention. They've secured partial funding to support the Surfing into Summer Supper Meal Program, looking for additional funding and donations of the following items. So Faith, do you have anything you want to add on this project?
Basically, it's all there on the flyer. They did get a grant or apply for a grant for thousands of dollars, but only got half of that. So that's why they're needing additional funding. And then you see on the flyer that the donations are minimal. So they have a nice little setup out there under a tent. I don't know how they did yesterday with all the rain, but they have home cooked meals. I mean, these are like substantial meals that they are handing out. Essentially, you get your meal and you go. There's no lingering, there's no congregating. And they're also looking for activities to send home with the kids. It's 18 and under. And so if you can think of activities for that age range, then they'd be more, or they'd be definitely appreciative. And then you can drop anything off between 3 or 6 p.m. They start the distribution at 5 to 6. So then they have that pre-set up and then the cleanup afterwards, which is really minimal. I need to drop off some toothpaste, toothbrush supplies or whatever later on this afternoon. So maybe I'll see one of you there with some donations. And then they're also looking for just volunteers just to help out wherever.
Okay, thank you, Faith. 100 Little Things update. Shane, do you have anything you want to add on the 100 Little Things? I know we had a few that were completed this week. We had sent out the masks to the Navajo Nation in New Mexico, and we were able to get 100 pencils, actually about 200 pencils donated to Murfreesboro. There's a family vacation night program that's happening next week. That they're distributing bags of goodies for folks. And I know that the dental clinic, I saw toothbrushes in there. I know because I put the 200 toothbrushes into 200 bags on Saturday. But how are we doing on the rest of these, Shane?
To date, we have 17 of the 100 projects completed. We have champions named for 21 other projects. So 17 projects down, 21 in progress. So it will send out with the follow-up email the complete status of the 100 Little Things. It's also available on our website at rotaryofcarbondale.org/centennial. We try to keep that page updated weekly or bi-weekly as to the status of the 100 Little Things. So if you want to be a champion and get involved in any of those projects, just let Club President Rick know, and we'll get you assigned to one.
Okay.
All right. So as Shane said, we've got a number of projects still in the works. Once we get back up and running, meeting in person, I'll be spearheading the canned food drive. We've got all of the rest of these are in the works. As far as the 100 pieces of trash, I think I mentioned this last week. When we went out and did this a couple weeks ago, I collected over 600 pieces of trash myself, and then you add in the rest of them that we had. We really did a number on the trash on the side of the road there. So I think we're going to do that tenfold. Good news from Phil. Now it's time for your good news. Who's got some good news to share today?
I do. I didn't know if you could see my hand raised with everybody in the room. Just wanted to thank Sierra for popping in to volunteer at the food distribution at Hopewell this past Saturday. And Linda Flowers. So it was some Rotarian representation without being a Rotarian event. So just let you know that we are all about service above self. Linda with the census information, and Sierra came with her son and helped distribute boxes of food that was part of the United Way and Cusimano and Sons. I don't know if I'm pronouncing their name right, but this time it was 250 boxes of fresh produce that was distributed to anyone that came, whether, it doesn't matter if you're in need or not, we're not making that judgment call. And then some were also picking it up for families that couldn't get out. So it was a good day, a lot cooler than it was the last time we were there. One of my chapter members has coordinated this event. I asked her if there was another one coming up soon, and she's going to let me know, and then I can distribute that information when I get it.
Shane, go ahead.
Okay.
There continues to be a demand on blood donations. The American Red Cross is desperate for people to donate blood. I donated blood last week at the First Methodist Church in Carbondale, and I saw lots of empty chairs, which was disappointing. So if you have the ability to get out, redcross.org does have a comprehensive site that you can find where a local blood drive is. I'm hoping that someday in the future, as social distancing becomes a distant memory, maybe the Rotary Club of Carbondale will host a blood drive. But if you have the ability to get out, I would encourage you to do so.
Anyone else with some good news to share? Linda Flowers.
Yes. The City of Carbondale and the Carbondale Branch NAACP on next Thursday is having a virtual town hall on policing. It's going to be on Zoom, on the city's TV channel, and on Facebook Live with the state of Illinois, the state NAACP, and the Illinois Chiefs of Police have signed off on 10 shared principles on policing. And we're going to be looking at the City of Carbondale Police and the Carbondale NAACP signing off on those shared principles, as well as giving Carbondale citizens the opportunity to interact with the panel of people, including the Chief of Police, the City Manager, an SIU Police, the Carbondale Criminal Justice Chairperson, a member of the Firemen and Police Board of Commissioner, SIU student on that evening. And so I will send the flyer to you, Rick, if you can email it to all of the members, and you can either put your questions in the chat on Thursday evening, or you can send them to the Carbondale United ahead of time. Okay.
Linda, that sounds excellent. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'm sure if, you know, the NAACP is involved, I'm sure you're part of the spearhead of that. I think we've all seen the social unrest that's been happening across the region, and it's sometimes difficult to, or it is difficult to watch. It's difficult to see the race relations, you know, coming to a head again in our country, and anything we can do to sit down and have civil conversations about change and about what's happening, I think are great. So thank you so much for getting that together. Any other good news to share or updates for the club?
I want to thank you for the challenge of giving blood. I gave blood for the first time this week because of you guys.
Thank you, Orr.
And it was, you set an online appointment. From leaving my house, giving blood at the church, and getting back to my house was 52 minutes. Because I had a set appointment there, and apparently I pump out the blood quickly.
Rick. Okay.
Rick?
Yes, go ahead.
A couple things, just picking up on that. A few weeks ago, I gave blood again, and I did something that I have never done before, but that they have encouraged people to do the big red donation. And that's not always possible at all locations, but if you haven't done it, it's like giving a double quantity of your red blood cells. And if you've never seen what your blood plasma looks like separated from your red blood cells and your white blood cells separated from everything, it's a little entertaining and very educational, because you're hooked up to this machine, and it separates all your blood, and you can see what's coming out of you and what's going back into you. It takes a little bit longer, and you are only eligible to give blood at twice the interval that you're eligible to if you're just doing a single quantity donation. So I would encourage any of you to, that are able to give blood, to consider doing that. The Red Cross said that really does help them significantly in making blood resources available to a larger distribution. And then the other thing, I think we've had a couple of more people join the meeting today. I don't know if you're seeing that from your screen or not, but it looks to me like we've had a couple of new folks visiting, and Ian Downey, and there was a gentleman on a moment ago I saw. At any rate, just to extend our welcome to them.
Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
Any additional good news for the day today? Thank you all for your blood donations and all the hard work that we're doing in the community.
Rick, may I say something?
Go ahead, Sharon.
Some of you know that the young lady whom we were sponsoring to be a Rotary exchange student next year was in a very bad car accident on June 7th. It was a head-on collision, and she's very lucky to be alive. But she has a broken pelvis and a broken sacrum and bad concussion. So there's a very slim chance that some kids will go out in January of the coming year, but most likely there will be no outbounds or inbounds this year. That's not totally determined. But getting back to Olivia, I thought it might be nice if we sent her cards. She is essentially in a wheelchair. Her mother has taken a leave of absence from her job as a nurse to take care of her. Because she's going to have to learn to walk all over again. And so if anyone's interested in that, I can give Rick the email address, and maybe, some of you could send her cards. I'm going to try to go see her at some point, and her mom said she may welcome having someone come to spell her, spend some time with her to, so she can run errands and things. But please keep her in your thoughts for a complete recovery. And again, if you'd like to send her a card, I think that would be very welcome for her.
I think that's a great idea, Sharon. Thank you. We'll keep her in our prayers.
Thank you.
Oh.
That can fit with our 100.
With what, Jerry?
I think one of our challenges, 100 little things, is sending 100 cards to children.
Yeah.
So that could fit underneath that too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Sergeant at Arms, Gail White, the floor is yours.
No fines being lobbied or levied by me against anyone this week. Everybody's been doing excellent, outstanding work. If anyone would like to fine, please feel free to do so at this time. But thank you all for your good work this past week and ongoing into next week.
Great. Mr. Mahoney, the it's time for you to be our guest speaker.
Well, thank you, Rick, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm going to hit on a few topics, but I'll start by saying one of the common questions you get whenever you do any interview for these types of jobs is, what are you going to do in your first 100 days? And I can guarantee you that this was not the answer I gave, nor was the answer anybody would have expected me to give. This has been a very different 100 days than I'm used to or have ever experienced before. And also will say that I appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you all today. But one of the things that's been really challenging for me is my typical approach is to be out and visible on campus in the community, and a lot of that has just not been possible. So I feel a little bit contained, and even as a speaker, I tend to walk around as I speak a lot, and now I'm used to sitting in a chair with my reading glasses on. So this is all very different for me, but we've all had to adjust, and I've had to adjust as well. I'm going to talk about really 4 things and then leave time for questions. One, I'll talk a little bit about the COVID crisis, what happened with us in the spring, what we're looking towards in the fall. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things we're doing relative to systemic racism and some of the efforts that we've started there. I'll talk a little bit about the strategic planning process for the SIU system. And then I'll finish by talking a little bit about the SIU Carbondale and some of the things that are happening there. So, I will start, much like you all did or in your meeting, and talking about good news. I will say, here's the good things that we learned during the COVID crisis. We have a lot of very dedicated faculty and staff who stepped up to help students in a wide variety of ways. Just amazing how they adjusted so quickly and found ways to help students. Everything from, our faculty kind of packaging up supplies and sending them to students so students could continue to work on their art projects. Our automotive technology program developed a whole kind of online thing where they could actually, students could tell them what to do on the cars, even though they physically couldn't be there, to help them kind of continue the learning process. So we really saw a lot of faculty and staff step up in some real positive ways. They also stepped up in positive ways to help out with addressing the crisis. So we had people doing everything from creating face shields to developing the VTMs, which are necessary for the testing. being involved with setting up testing centers around the Southern Illinois region, helping with contact tracing. Just be amazed. I read a list off at a recent board meeting of things where people had helped out, and it was a really, really long list. So I won't repeat all of it, but there was lots of ways that our faculty, staff, and students found a way to contribute. And I think it was meaningful when the state put together a task force. They asked Jerry Cruz, our medical school dean, to serve as the health expert on that. So I think they've really learned to rely on SIU a lot throughout this entire crisis. We got a lot of great support from our alumni and friends. The Saluki Cares program helped to raise a lot of money to help support students who were dealing with all kinds of different struggles during this crisis. It was a good opportunity for us to collaborate as a system. I think we came together closer across the medical school, Carbondale and Edwardsville, working on solutions, working on these challenges, really relying on expertise that existed from everybody. And I will say one of the things that's been reassuring, I think, is the good results we've seen in the state of Illinois. Really have seen here a flattening of the curve. I came most recently from South Carolina. I wish I could say South Carolina results were as good as Illinois are. They're heading in the opposite direction. And having gone back there about a month ago for a visit, I can tell you why. They're not social distancing, they're not wearing masks, they're not doing any of the things we should be doing. And we really see the results of that lack of paying attention to the best healthcare advice. Now, the challenges that we faced, and there were many, but I'll talk about just a couple. You know, one of the things that we realized through the crisis, and one of the things we had to address right away, was we're trying to meet the needs of a diverse group of students. There was a lot of discussion about we need to send every student home immediately and get them out of the residence halls. And we ended up actually having 350 students stay in the residence halls. Let me tell you why we didn't send them home. There's an assumption that every student who goes home has access to Wi-Fi in their home, and they do not. There's an assumption that every student has access to a laptop or a computer at home, and they do not. There's an assumption that every student had a place to go to live that was safe and secure. They do not. There was an assumption that every student had access to food where they were going to go to, and they do not. So keeping some students around was really a social justice thing as much as anything else, and making sure that we're actually meeting the needs of our students. And I'm happy to say, of the 350 students we had here on campus, only 2 ended up with the coronavirus, and 1 had that when they came back, and I think infected the other one in the car ride back here. But other than that, we did not have an outbreak, and we were able to encourage our students, and they did a much better job, I think, than people realized in following all the safety precautions that we were trying to get them to follow. So it gave us a lot of hope in our young people. Other thing we learned certainly is that online education isn't the best for every situation. I've been long an advocate for online education. I think it's great, and I think you can do a lot of things and opens up educational opportunities for more people. But back to our automotive technology program, as much as they try to adjust as well as they can, it's very different than having your hands on the car and actually doing that work yourself. And that's just a reality. And we know for some students, learning in an online environment doesn't work as well. I have 2 kind of college age people in my family or close to me. One thrived in that environment and one just failed 3 classes. So it was not a good, and it was not a student who had struggled before. So again, every student is a little bit different and every program is a little bit different. And that's part of what will influence what we do in the fall. It also obviously created a lot of financial needs on our campuses, you know, significant losses from refunds, from lack of events on campus, both at Carbondale and Edwardsville. And ironically, the School of Medicine that really stepped up took the biggest hit because they really shut down a lot of their clinical operations to focus on the COVID crisis. They did not bring in the same revenue they normally would have brought in. And so the impact on them, I think in this year will be roughly about $40 million in lost revenue, which has a obviously massive impact that we're dealing with as well. So a lot of challenges. As we look forward to the fall, we've issued our plans both at Carbondale and Edwardsville. The things that we have said as our priorities, certainly health and safety is our top priority to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I will say that is not as clear sometimes as people think that it is. There was actually a study just came out yesterday at Cornell that said if they went totally online with their programs, their students would be 2 to 10 times as likely to get the coronavirus as compared to if they come back and have some mix of face-to-face and online classes. And part of that is we always assume if students don't come back, they'll stay at home, they'll follow all the rules, and they'll do everything to protect their health. And that actually is not the case. And what Cornell was saying is that at least if we bring them back and have some control over their behavior, we're more likely to be able to reduce the number of transmissions rather than if we put everything online. And so, again, this is a little bit more challenging and constantly getting more data to help us make our decisions. Obviously, the educational experience is a driver for us as well, trying to provide the best educational experience we can for every student, and really wanting to continue our research efforts. As we saw in this crisis, our research efforts are critical to the state, and we want to make sure we continue to do that. When it comes to tackling the issue of systemic racism, that's also something we've made as a top priority right now. Everything going on in the country has, I think, increased our focus on it. It's not something that I haven't been doing before, we haven't done before, but I think there's more energy around it than I've ever seen, and I think more desire for change than I've seen before. So I think it gives us an opportunity to do more things. We had a conversation of understanding on Monday night. We're going to continue to have those conversations, but we're really moving from words to action. So a lot of what we're going to be focused on is looking at everything we do, our programs, our processes, our policies, our procedures, to ensure that we're not unintentionally biased in some ways. And really, a lot of systemic racism is not intentional, it's unintentional. We just don't think about the impact of the policies and procedures that we're using. I use the example of most universities have their scholarship programs heavily rely on SAT and ACT scores. Even though we know those tests are biased and we know they're not great predictors of college success, we still over-rely on them in making scholarship decisions, which leads to inequities in how we distribute our scholarship dollars. So there's a lot that we can look at. Our aspiration is to be a model, to have an influence beyond SIU, to be, I think you talked about this earlier, being a place that other people want to come. I mean, the Walt Disney quote, I think, was the thing that kind of stuck with me. The idea that people want to come back because they learned something or they got something out of the experience. We hope we created a situation relative to how we've addressed systemic racism that we will be seen as a model of other higher education institutions, and they'll want to come and see how we did what we did and how it was successful. So that's what we're working on. That was actually before I started in March, I put together several working groups across the system to look at a number of different things. Diversity and inclusion was one of those, but we also have groups looking at student success, academic programs where we may want to develop more innovative and new academic programs, shared services across the system, community and economic impact. We are a major part of the Southern Illinois region. We should be thinking about what impact we can have, whether that's on health, education, whatever areas that you can think of. Focus on partnerships and developing system-wide partnerships, looking at employee satisfaction and our research efforts. I'm starting to get those reports in. I was actually just reading a couple of them this morning. That will be the first step towards developing a system-wide strategic plan, which we hope to have done by the end of the fall semester. That will allow for a lot more input from people. So we'll take those plans, we'll get more input, and we'll come up with a system-wide plan, which will have some clear, measurable goals. I'm a big one on you can't get there if you don't know where you're going. You have to have clear, measurable goals. And again, every year when I was a Winthrop as president, we would look at our goals. Some we met, some we didn't, but it gave us some direction for what we needed to do next. When we sometimes met or exceeded our goals, it's like, well, maybe we didn't aspire high enough. We need to maybe kind of change those goals and increase our aspirations. Other times it was we fell backwards. We need to really focus on that. And that's what we plan to do. One of the things that we will do with related to the strategic plan, and the person who really helped me with that is I will be recommending to the board a new vice president for academic innovation planning and partnerships. That will be Dr. Girish Gupchup. He's not new to the SIU system. He was actually really a big part of the developing of the pharmacy school at Edwardsville. Has a very creative, very innovative. I think he'll expand what was traditionally more of an internal position and just working with IBHE and getting program approvals and things like that, to really looking for innovative opportunities for the SIU system. So we're happy to have him as part of our team, and he'll be joining me soon in the next month. Last thing I was going to focus on, then I'll answer any questions. A little bit about SIU Carbondale, and I'll start by talking about my plans, which some of you may know, but some of you may not. One of the things when I took this position, the question is, where would I be located? And traditionally the president has been here in Carbondale, which has created a couple problems. One is the Edwardsville people have not been happy with that. They always see the person as more aligned with Carbondale. That certainly, I think, has played into some of the stresses that have existed in the past. It frankly also hasn't always been helpful to the chancellor at SIU Carbondale, because people then see me as the super chancellor of the campus, and that's not my role, and nor do I want that to be my role. So I think it creates some conflict sometimes with the chancellor. So I will be spending some time here through December. I will be moving to Edwardsville for the spring semester. I'm teaching a class here in the fall, teaching a class in Edwardsville in the spring, and then we'll live in Springfield. And part of that is that's where the legislature is. That's a lot of my work, is dealing with the legislature. Part of that is, I also have said, Springfield is kind of the Switzerland in all of this. It's considered neutral territory, and no one gets upset if I'm in Springfield. So that seems to work out better, but that's where I will ultimately be. And part of the reason I feel comfortable with all of this is we have a new chancellor who started 5 hours ago, I guess, on the job. So Dr. Austin Lane is coming to us from most recently at Texas Southern, but really a lot of experience in multiple different types of campuses, different types of universities, also community college as well as four-year colleges. I think he will bring that expertise and experience with him that will help us out. He's already been changing some things even before he got here. He's changed reporting lines. One of those I will say is the chief of police will now report directly to him on the Carbondale campus, but there's a number of other things that he is changing and putting some new people on his leadership team. The Associate Vice Chancellor for Diversity also will be part of his leadership team going forward. That has not been the case in the past. So he's already making changes. He will be developing his own strategic plan for the Carbondale campus. And I know he will be reaching out to you and a lot of other people and doing a whole listening tour. I think the thing that attracted me beyond his experience to Dr. Lane is his personality. I think we will find him to be very engaging. I think he's the right person to deal with a lot of the challenges we have here in Carbondale. And so I think you'll be very impressed when if you haven't had a chance to meet him yet, you will be when he gets on board. Just a real quick update on enrollment. I know that's one of the biggest issues here. I will say there's some very positive signs, particularly for freshmen. We're seeing a huge increase in the number of freshmen enrolling, big increase in the number of freshmen wanting to live on campus. Our housing deposits are up like 15 to 20% for next year. Lots of very positive signs for that. I will say the challenges tend to be, and our retention rate actually looks really good too. We may get close to 80% freshman to sophomore retention rate, which is kind of a gold standard for a lot of public universities. If you can get to the 80% mark, you've really done a lot. And we were way below that just a few years ago. All that's positive. I will say overall enrollment will likely be down still. And part of that is we had a lot of students graduate from a much larger classes that we had 5 or 6 years ago. And so in more of it, the numbers, as you look at them, may appear down even if the incoming numbers are better. The other thing that may hurt us is just the challenge of getting international students back here, particularly at the graduate level. We may see some decreases there. In fact, I expect we likely will. And we still don't see, I don't think, as much as I would like to see transfers from the two-year schools, from the community colleges, where again, I think Dr. Lane's expertise and having worked at the two-year school will be really beneficial to us. So again, another reason why we're excited to have him on board. In my mind, this is really a critical time in the history of SIU Carbondale. But I think we have the right leader to help us move forward in a positive way. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Dr. Lane, Christine McGuire here. Last year, there was a Veterans Summit that was organized out of the President's office, and it involved people from Edwardsville, from Carbondale, and the medical school. And while there was not a great attendance because I think the PR aspect fell flat, it was really a great system-wide effort. Do you anticipate, one, doing that again, and two, doing more of those kinds of things where we have so many talented people at all the campuses that we could really be thriving much more, I think, than we have been in pulling the campuses together. And I'm an alumna of UI at Urbana, so I'm used to, and I also work there. So I know that there's always these pulls and tugs between campuses, but still at the U of I, there's a feeling that everybody's one. And yeah. I've never gotten that feeling here.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that in the last several months, we're starting to move in that direction. And I think Dr. Lane coming on board and really already developing a relationship with Chancellor Pembroke at SIU Edwardsville will help with that as well. Kind of need to do that from the top. as far as the Veterans Summit goes, yeah, we were talking about that just a couple weeks ago of wanting to continue that effort. With everything else, the challenge is what can we and can we not do at this point in history, given all of the limitations on bringing larger events together. But we were talking about, again, we got some support to do that event, of looking for support to do another follow-up event and continue to follow through with some of the suggestions that came out of that. So that's certainly not dead, and I think we would like to continue to do that, but that's a good example of where it's not really one campus or the other, it's something we can do together.
Great.
Mr. President, thank you for this is Gil Croning.
Hi, Gil.
Thank you for joining us today. I was wondering whether this virus thing and the economy, how do the budgets, what impact might this have on this year and next year's budget? Any ideas on that?
Yeah, I mean, the one positive thing, I'll start with the positive, then I'll get to the challenge. The positive thing was the state kept the state appropriation flat, which I'm certainly deeply appreciative of this point. Whether they can maintain that through the whole year, we'll have to see how the rest of the year goes. I don't think they know that any more than I do. But I will say, some of the states I've worked in the past have already done 20% cuts in state appropriation, which if they had done that, we would be in a whole lot worse shape than we are right now. That being said, there was still an impact from the coronavirus. We refunded a lot of housing and dining money, again, lost some different revenue sources. What happens with college athletics is still a big question mark, I think, for all of us. And if we don't have games, then we don't have fans buying tickets and all of those other things. So there's a lot, I think, that's still somewhat unknown, but it definitely was a challenge. We got some money through the CARES Act from the federal government. We got about $9 million at Carbondale, but half of that went to students. And the 4.5 that was left certainly did not cover all the losses that we had. So we did take a financial hit. I'm hopeful if we do the right things in the fall, we can limit that financial hit enough that we don't have to do anything that really hurts the campus as far as cutting goes.
That's the question. Budget. Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. President, I actually had a question. This is Brooke Guthman. And my question is there any new ideas or efforts to identify, like in recruiting or attracting more local students and local athletes? Also kind of with that, I think that there's a lot of negative perception for local people on sending their children to SIU. I just was curious if there was any identified goals or, attack mechanisms on that.
Yeah, and that will be really more within Dr. Lane's purview, but I know that's one of the things he's talked about and has been talking with people about. I think part of his background was in enrollment management. So he brings, again, some expertise in that area, which was one of the things I think that was attractive about him. Right now, he's also doing a search for a vice chancellor for enrollment management. So he'll get to pick his partner. But I know that's one of the things that he's heard kind of repeatedly is needing to do a better job recruiting locally. And I think is working on some strategies, and we'll do that with the person he hires in that vice chancellor role. We'll have a new lead in enrollment management area by the fall semester.
Thank you.
Dr. Mahony, Christine McGuire again. Several years ago, and I bring up Rita's name, but she did have a fairly extensive advertising program for the university, particularly based in Chicago and St. Louis. And I know from being a development officer at Morris Library that the alumni called me all the time with having seen the billboards or heard something on the air. And I realize budgets are tight, but also that's one of the ways to get the word out. And it really did bring alumni back to the table to say, wow, I'm really proud of my degree. So are you going to be thinking about efforts like that again for the system? Not just
and it depends on what we're looking at. So let me say there's advertising that's geared more towards our alumni and building support in that way, and then advertising towards students. Part of the reason we're seeing the increases we are with the freshmen is we've moved a lot more digital advertising and a lot less billboards. The reality is the digital advertising, that's where they look for information about where they're going to go to college, and has proven to be far more effective and actually is less costly as well. So the billboards can be substantially more costly, but the digital advertising. So the billboards sometimes and some of those things may hit a different group or for a different purpose. But when it comes to recruiting students, what Carbondale has found, and again, they're not unique in that, the digital advertising tends to be most effective. And the ability to do that in some really creative ways. My previous institution, we were talking about, I mean, you can get it now to the point where if we have someone watching a basketball game in town, we can kind of push advertising to them because they're in town for something else unrelated to SIU Carbondale. And, oh, by the way, did you know there's a university here and here are the programs they offer? So kind of encouraging them to go take a look at campus while they're in town. So the ability to kind of really target that advertising has gotten a lot more sophisticated. And Carbondale has put a lot of effort into that as well.
Well, and then I'll add one more question or suggestion. I know that several years ago, we had a very good program that was started for retention and matriculating first-generation students. And one of the people that was instrumental in getting the grant that started it was Jill Gobert. And you might want to talk to her about that program because it was really very, very good. And it was sad, extremely sad that the campus decided not to pursue it.
Okay, I will. We're looking at, I know Dr. Lane and I have been talking about a couple programs that were here at one point and aren't here anymore. One of them, I think he also mentioned, was a program that brought students in for a couple classes in the summer before their freshman year as a way kind of bridging them in and providing additional support. And I don't know if that's the one you're talking about, but I think that you're talking about a different one. But anyways, there's a couple ideas he had. He did something similar at Texas Southern. Any other questions?
Thank you, Dr. Mahony, for being on, for joining us today. And I wish you the best of luck. I do think that the living in Springfield and splitting time between Carbondale and Edwardsville is very helpful for this area specifically. I work for an organization that serves Missouri and Illinois, so we cover a lot of central and southern Illinois, in addition to the St. Louis. And there's always a division of us versus them, and who's on what side of the river, and who's north of I-64, south of I-64, things like that. So I think splitting time is the best of both worlds. So great job on that idea and making it
Thanks,
happen.
and I will be splitting a lot of time, so you'll still see me a lot. I just won't be living here permanently.
Okay, that's very good. Moving into what's happening next week, we have our district governor visit. The new district governor, Lorraine Cavatayo. The district crossover was this past weekend, so she will be joining us, as well as the Carbondale Breakfast Rotary Club will be joining us for her visit. Also want to bring up that there's a couple Rotary trainings happening coming up in July. So I've got these up on the board. You can also find them on the Rotary District 6510 Facebook page. Saturday the 11th is Bridges to Understanding Diversity, Equality, Inclusion, Race, and Social Justice. And the 18th is the Virtual Foundation Part 1. The 25th is Attracting and Engaging New Members. I'm going to try to get on that meeting if I can. We need to see what we can do to get additional new members in. August 1st is the Virtual Foundation Part 2, and August 8th will be High Impact Club and District Meetings. So all members of Rotary are welcome to join in those trainings and seminars. Additional upcoming events. So we talked, here's our guest speaker schedule. July 8th, like I said, Lorraine Cavatayo, our new district governor, will be joining us. July 15th will be Carbondale United, Ms. Nancy Maxwell. The 22nd, Dr. Flowers, do you have our schedule for the 22nd? Do we have someone lined up to speak that date yet?
I do. I'll email that to you.
Okay, great. We'll update that for next week's agenda. And then July 29th is our club assembly. So hope to see everybody at each one of these additional meetings. There's a screenshot from one of our past meetings. And as we all know, we're working to end polio now. I'm going to wrap up our meeting with the 4-way test. Brooke Guthman, Would you please join us in the four-way test?
The four-way test of the things we say and do. The things that we think, say, and do, sorry. Is it the truth? Or first, sorry.
Is it the truth?
Second.
Is it
Is
fair,
it fair
to
to
all
all concerned?
3.
Will it build goodwill
Build better friendships
4.
Will it be beneficial to all
to all
concerned?
concerned?
Thank you all for joining us at our Rotary meeting again this week. Meeting is adjourned.
Luciana sounds like a good person, nice person.